All right, it is time for One Up on Wall Street. It's our time at the Motley Fool to talk about all the awesome geeky things in the world that you can invest in. I am not Ellen Bowman. Ellen is out, and I am a sorry replacement for her. However, I am joined, as usual, by Tim Byers. Say hello, Tim.
Hey guys.
And Nathan Alderman, who is actually here at Fool HQ today. Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Howdy.
So let's just dig on into our first story, shall we? And feel free to not remind me how worse I am at this than Ellen is. So, like I said, I am a poor excuse for her. She knows a lot more about this than I do. First
We will
story.
mock you relentlessly, Allison, throughout the broadcast.
All right.
Right.
First story is that YouTube is paying $1 billion in cash for Twitch TV. For those who don't know, Twitch launched in 2011. It has 45 million visitors a month, and it is a hub where people play their gameplay videos from any sort of game. They tape themselves, and they tape themselves actually doing gameplay. So, Nate, is this a good idea or a great idea on YouTube's part?
Well, first of all, we've got to keep in mind that this is still just rumored, and $1 billion could not be the final price. It could go even higher. But yeah, the idea is that Google's YouTube division wants to pay at least $1 billion for Twitch, this site where people will live stream the video games they're playing over the internet, sometimes with really elaborate setups where they've got cameras pointed at them, superimposed in the corner while they're playing. I think this is a fantastic purchase for Google and YouTube. It's the exact opposite of Facebook buying the Oculus Rift. There, it was a lavish purchase that really didn't seem immediately accretive to what Facebook wanted to do and didn't seem related to what Facebook is doing now. In this case, Google is doing what it loves to do. It is buying a great place to sell advertisements. Twitch is a niche audience, but it's a very large and fast-growing niche audience. From 2012 to 2013, Twitch's viewers more than doubled from 20 million to that 45 million. That's registered users of the site. The amount of video streams that they delivered doubled, and the number of folks who were unique broadcasters every week tripled. So this site is growing explosively. I saw one article that refers to it as the ESPN of video games. It's basically a place to go hang out, watch people playing video games, making funny comments. You can type in chat and interact with the people playing the games, and they'll take your suggestions. It's just a fun way to go. I've seen people who are doing contests and prize giveaways while they play in concert with the makers of the games that they're playing. It's really impressive. It's growing fast. Apparently has a huge and devoted audience. It's also built directly in. Yeah, sorry. I really despise this idea. It's terrible. It's also built right into Xbox One and Sony's PlayStation 4. So with this purchase, YouTube gets an audience that is one unknown quantity. They're video gamers. Their hobby revolves around buying things on a regular basis, and they are the perfect audience to sell things to. It's going to make YouTube, I think, a lot of money. It fits neatly in with their business, and I think it's a good use of Google's billion or billion-plus dollars.
So, Tim, do you love it as much as Nate does?
I do, because I haven't seen it in action, but my youngest son, on his iPad mini, we don't have an advanced console, but he likes to watch Minecraft gameplay on YouTube. So, I mean, that's something he would get, if this was integrated into YouTube, he would be getting Twitch streams. So, I think it absolutely fits. The number of minutes per month is, 12 billion minutes per month that the various broadcasters are pushing out to Twitch TV, and Twitch also has they have a plan underway. If this purchase goes through, I assume it wouldn't derail it. But up to this point, they hadn't been broadcasting mobile gameplay, but now they're getting to that point. So this becomes a very whole product, and I think Google would invest in it to make iPad gameplay or smartphone gameplay just as awesome as console gameplay, which just expands the YouTube audience. So yeah, good for Google. I really like them going after this, and I think it's a way for them to cash in. Google, I mean, to cash in on the console and mobile gaming boom, if you will, without making their own console, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. They're now going to effectively be getting some cut of the people who are playing consoles from Sony and consoles from Microsoft, and there's not a damn thing Sony or Microsoft can do about it without alienating a lot of their fans.
And they'd be thrilled about that, right? I mean, Sony and Microsoft are just going to be over the moon about how awesome that is.
Reports indicated that Microsoft was trying to buy Twitch in part to be able to say, it's only on Xbox, PS4, you can't have it. And
Right.
that reportedly may have been one of the reasons why Twitch turned them down and went with Google instead.
All right, well, let's move on, but we're not really going to move on because we're still going to be talking about Google. Google has replaced Apple as the most valuable brand in the world. So I don't necessarily care if you guys think this is true or not. I don't know. What one-word answer? Nate, do you agree with that?
Meh.
Yeah. Tim, do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So, all right, meh and yeah. So let's move on from that topic. We're relatively in agreement here. Instead, I want to hear from you guys about what brands you think are the most valuable in the space that we most care about here. So first off, we're going to start off with gaming. The most valuable brand to you in gaming. And if you can't invest in it, what is maybe your second option as far as one that you can invest in? So who wants to go first on this one?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'd say Steam. I think Valve is doing amazing things in gaming. I think that, they also with the Steam box are starting with an in-home streaming option. Valve has done amazing things with taking existing games, putting it on an open platform, and making gaming much more accessible to those who don't want to pay $500 for a console. It's a pretty sweet deal. So now we're going to get the Steam box upcoming here. Unfortunately, you can't invest in Valve. They're still a private company, but I do think that NVIDIA, which is making huge strides in enabling mobile gaming with its Tegra K1, where now you have a processor that handles graphics and core processing just as deftly, so you have really advanced graphics processing on a tablet. I think that's killer. It means you get console quality games, or at least if you're not yet, there is a foreseeable future where you get console quality games on a tablet. I think that's pretty killer.
All right, Nate, what's your biggest brand in gaming?
Well, it's not either of the major two console makers or the distant third, poor Nintendo. I would argue the most valuable brand in gaming right now belongs to Activision Blizzard, which is publicly traded, because Activision, now granted it's precarious, Activision has a habit of running their franchises into the ground, but right now they've got Call of Duty, the top action game franchise in the world. They've got Skylanders, which is a hugely popular franchise with kids. They've got World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo on the Blizzard side, which are all hugely beloved and very sticky and popular games. And among other things, they're now coming out with Destiny, the new game from Bungie, the creators of the Halo series. So right now, at least, I think Activision has the most valuable brand in gaming. Electronic Arts definitely has their rival, definitely has Madden and other games, but they don't have quite as good a reputation in as many spheres as Activision.
All right, so moving on from gaming then, let's talk the biggest brand in movies. Nate, why don't you kick us off with that one?
Oh, it has got to be Disney, which in the same Brand Z survey that named Google the top pick over Apple, listed Disney number 23 out of 100. Disney is just crushing it on entertainment. I mean, the only thing where it's not ruling the world right now is ABC. They've not only got a massive Disney, core Disney hit with Frozen. They've got Marvel, which is going like gangbusters. They've bought Star Wars, which is going like gangbusters, or will be next year with the new Episode 7. These are merchandising juggernauts. They've got theme parks that are doing great, live-action movies that are doing pretty well. If they can get ABC back up to snuff, then there's going to be no stopping them. So yeah, Disney's definitely the most valuable brand in movies, in my opinion.
All right, Tim, how about you?
I agree. I mean, I think any company that can entice you to go to a movie that not only features but stars a talking raccoon that carries huge guns and blasts things and gets people really excited about that has an amazing brand. And
his best friend is a tree.
And a talking tree to go along with it, right. That says only one line throughout the entire, one line repeatedly throughout the entire movie, and people are over the moon excited about Guardians of the Galaxy. And I understand why. The second trailer came out just a few days ago, and I tweeted at after I giddily watched it for the third or fourth time to James Gunn and it said, "Nice work. Is it wrong that I'm wondering that I can't stop thinking about what's on Star-Lord's mixtape?" So they've hooked me completely. I think I agree with NATO. Disney is the brand to beat here.
Yeah. All right. Then the last one we're going to look at is the biggest brand in TV. And I guess it's Tim's turn to answer.
I would say HBO, which is a subsidiary of Time Warner. HBO is killing it, and in so many ways, and killing it in terms of ratings. They're killing characters on Game of Thrones. They are doing it remarkably well. Now, as part of Time Warner, you can't invest in HBO directly, but you get the benefits, and there is accelerating operating income at HBO. The strategy that they have to put together I think a fairly unique mix of interesting and niche drama, but doing it so well that it's capturing a wide audience. That's Game of Thrones, but also bringing in really interesting scripted comedy like Veep, which is a hilarious show. If you've never watched Veep, it's incredibly good.
So funny.
I know, and
Nathan doesn't know what we're talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I've never seen it. I have seen some episodes of The Thick of It from the guy who created Veep, and if it's anything like that, then I keep hearing amazing things about it.
I can't believe a British guy is behind it because it's so American. But
it is very, very funny. Silicon Valley is funny, but the point here is that there's so much investment in drama. So Netflix putting money into House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, which is, I guess you could call it kind of comedy, but it's dark comedy. It's very dark comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like what NATO said, it's like, yeah, it's not, I mean, I wouldn't call it, a really pure comedy. It's maybe some dark comedy.
Considering that, spoiler alert, the end of last season ended with the main character beating someone bloody with her bare knuckles during a Christmas pageant.
Yeah, I mean, it's I wouldn't call it that. It's certainly, but HBO has a big comedy lineup that's mixed with drama, and they've just been doing incredibly well with that and leading some of their other cable and streaming rivals. So yeah, they're the brand to beat here.
Nathan, what do you think? Do you agree? Is it HBO or Netflix?
Agree.
Netflix is pretty good too.
Netflix is pretty good, but Netflix is still trying to be HBO. HBO is who all the television players and all the television networks want to be. You never hear someone say, oh, this is an AMC-style show or this is a Showtime-style show. Those networks are all trying to emulate HBO.
Right. And even Netflix says that. Netflix
exactly.
That is their comparable.
Netflix wouldn't have a template for a sophisticated, glossy, visually dynamic drama like House of Cards if HBO hadn't already set that template. So if you don't want to invest in all of Time Warner just to get HBO, AMC makes an interesting second choice. Tim and I have debated AMC in the past, and I do have some issues with the family that runs it, but I have to say the stock has been doing well. The company itself has been doing fairly well, and they are really, between Mad Men and Breaking Bad, they are, and now The Walking Dead, they've really made a name for themselves, and they're beginning to break away from the HBO-like mold and really become a network where other people say, oh, that's an AMC-like drama.
Yeah, they got to keep it up, though.
New shows. Yeah, they do have to find new shows. They've got a spin-off of The Walking Dead in the works with Mad Men ending and Breaking Bad soon to end. But they've got some intriguing new shows in the pipeline, including a new one called Halt and Catch Fire about the birth of the PC industry. And that has a potential to be a breakout hit.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Thank you for sharing with me all your top brands and all the different sectors we care about. Let's move on and talk about Spider-Man. He is headed for $700 million worldwide, but Sony was hoping for $1 billion. So, Tim, what went wrong here?
Well, I think, and NATO and I have talked about this in previous shows, and I think we were both concerned that this movie would be too crowded, that it would be convoluted, and it's just really hard to peg a franchise on the bad guy, and that is what they're trying to do. This film sets up, bad guys as characters you want to care about. I think that's hard to do. But just to get into some numbers here, so this is from Box Office Mojo. They are tracking through day 19, on a comparable basis, Amazing Spider-Man versus Amazing Spider-Man 2. The new movie is, domestically is about $175 million at the box office. At this same point, Amazing Spider-Man had already hit 225.4 million, so it's tracking 22% behind. And Amazing Spider-Man was already the weakest entry in the entire franchise. All three of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films did more in terms of worldwide grosses than the Amazing Spider-Man did, so this one is tracking to be fifth. It's going in the wrong direction right at the time that Sony has bet so big that they want to have one new Spider-Man unit. They call it the Spider-Man universe. One new Spider-Man universe movie every year. And the box office is very important for Sony because they don't get merchandising rights anymore. They already gave that up to Disney. So it's a little bit worrisome. I don't think it's time to short Sony per se, but I'm not interested in going long Sony right now. I want to see what they can do with the Spider-Man franchise from here. This wasn't the start they were looking for.
Right. And Nathan, now you see implications here for, or what are, I guess, the implications here for Sinister Six and Venom? I mean, what's coming in the pipeline here?
Well, I haven't seen Amazing Spider-Man 2. I thought the first movie was sort of a very heavily managed product more than a film. And I think that one part of the reason that this film has done even worse than its predecessor is they're really not getting the character right. Sam Raimi's films really got the core of the character, the whole with great power comes great responsibility, whereas at the end of the first Amazing Spider-Man, you have Peter Parker breaking a promise that he made to a dying man so that he can make it with that guy's daughter. And apparently that carries through to the second movie where the problem, Peter Parker's main problem, is that people just won't get out of his way and let him be awesome. Those stupid people. It just seems like it's a very poorly written movie, and the same guys, Alex Kurtzman, who's a co-writer of Spider-Man 2, is on board to do the Venom movie, which doesn't really bode well. Drew Goddard is a very talented writer. He did Cloverfield, Cabin in the Woods. He's on board for the Sinister Six movie, but that may not even get off the ground at this point, given the poor box office receipts. I think when you fundamentally show that you don't understand the character, when you treat a movie like a product instead of a really engaging story, and when you literally position a film not as its own worthwhile piece of entertainment, but as some strategic chessboard piece that you're hoping to get to something else. Oh, never mind this film. The next film that it's setting up, that one's going to be great. I think you're making really dumb moves as a studio. At the very least, I'd say this is not a reason to invest in Sony.
All right. Well, let's move on to the lightning round where, if you can, as much as possible, keep those answers tight. Maybe just a couple sentences. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
You're asking for the moon, Allison.
Sorry.
Why did you test me like this? I know
you guys are so smart, and you just have so much to say, and here I am trying to limit you. But let's see if we can blow through these as quickly as possible. First up, Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return. As we talked about before we started shooting here, I'd never heard of this. I thought it was a straight-to-video movie, and it also sounds really sinister, like Dorothy's back and she's mad and she's not going to take it anymore. So apparently this movie is out. I hadn't even heard of it. It's a disaster. They pulled in $3.7 million. I don't know, Nate. You talk about how much of a disaster this is.
The film reportedly cost between $60 and $70 million. It was produced in India. It made $3.7 million in its opening weekend. The guys behind it were like, "Oh yeah, it's a conspiracy. Hollywood's trying to keep us independent productions down. Next weekend it's going to do great." The following weekend it did $1.9 million. The takeaway here is that a lot of the money for this film apparently was raised by cold calling individual investors over the phone, people who are not traditional investors. It's basically what you saw in The Wolf of Wall Street. Guys somewhere wanting to raise money, calling ordinary people, selling them a rainbow-colored dreamscape of impossible profits, and then taking their money. And it looks like they may have taken as much as 20% or even 40%, depending on which account you read, of the money they brought in and kept it for themselves and used the rest to make the movie. So I think it's a cautionary tale. Not only is there no place like home, but you should not invest in anything that someone calls you at random over the phone about, no matter how great they make it sound.
Now, Tim, though, this kind of sounds like almost, it's not a Kickstarter, but,
No.
is there a Kickstarter movie that you would perhaps invest in? If there was a movie on Kickstarter, which one would actually get you to pony
Kickstarter
up
at least
some
has
money?
accountability.
I didn't warn you I was going to ask this question. This kind of puts you on the spot.
That's a good one. Let's see. I mean, it's going to get made already. Otherwise, I would have said, it's one of my favorite indie comics from the '80s. Dreadstar's already getting made, but man, would I love to see Carl Potts' Alien Legion get made. If they put that on Kickstarter, I'm in.
All right, how about you, Nate?
I actually did invest in getting the Veronica Mars movie made, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. As a fan of the show, I loved it. I felt like I got my money's worth, and I'd invest in another Kickstarter for another movie in that vein, or a movie of Brian Fuller's Pushing Daisies in a heartbeat.
All right, cool. Moving on. We've got Godzilla. He crushed it. It opens to $93 million and is getting a sequel. So what does this mean for monster movies? Warner Brothers, Tim, what are you thinking?
I think it's a good sign for creature features, which tend to not do very well. I mean, creature features have a mixed history. Sometimes they do very well, other times not so much. Right now, this is still tracking behind. I'm not sure if it's tracking behind Roland Emmerich's 1998 Godzilla, which was terrible, but it is still trailing, well behind that film. It has a long way to go to make more than that film did. But at 216.2 million worldwide, that's still a great number. But yeah, it is tough to do. But if anybody can do it, I think it's Gareth Edwards. Monsters was a great film. It was also an incredibly profitable film. That was the indie film that he made that led to the gig getting him Godzilla. In terms of the business arrangement here, this is Legendary Pictures with Warner Brothers, and Legendary does have a different financing partner that they're supposed to go with moving forward. And you'll have to correct me here, Nato, if I have this wrong, but I think it's Universal.
It is Universal.
It's Universal. Now, you can't invest in Legendary directly, but if you do want to get a piece of Godzilla 2, you could certainly take, Warner, which is going to be participating in whatever the second is. It seems like that next film is going to be slightly bigger budget, because if there is, I haven't seen it yet, but if there is one complaint about this film that seems consistent is, man, Godzilla was awesome. I really wish I could have had more Godzilla in this movie.
Yeah, he really seemed like the star, because there wasn't any super huge star power in it, like really, right? Like, Bryan Cranston and his hair.
Yeah, the way that Gareth Edwards does his films is it's the slow build, and you build up, and he's in the background until he's in your face, and then there's no escape, and he's supposed to, apparently the film leaves you breathless, which is great. But so I think this is going to do well. I do think it'll eclipse the 1998, disaster that is called Godzilla, and for Legendary Pictures, if you do want to get in on that business, there are two companies that are investors in Legendary that you could, look at. One is Waddell and Reed, or Waddell and Reed, and the other is Fortress Investment Group. So it does have some backers, and in the write-up, I'll get those tickers in there for anybody who wants to take a closer look at those financial companies. But right now, that's the only way you can get a piece of Legendary Pictures.
All right, Nathan. So give us a strong closer here. What monster do you want to see? What's your next creature feature? That's what you said? Sorry.
That's creature features, right?
Next creature. What creature do you want to see, Nato?
Honestly, the day that Pacific Rim 2, which is also a Legendary movie, gets greenlit and Guillermo del Toro comes back to direct a sequel to the last year's giant robots punching giant monsters in the face epic, I'm just going to run around high-fiving everyone I see, up to and including the mailman. And if they announce Pacific Rim versus Godzilla, I'm probably going to lapse into a coma for at least 24 hours out of sheer joy.
After you do your patented Godzilla roar, right?
Yeah, that's all right. I apologize to Toho, to the entire nation of Japan, and to anyone listening. That was not a good Godzilla roar.
Oh, but that would be like that sound like a grandmother seeing a cockroach on the floor. That you can pull it out for any that moment.
Well, it would work a lot better if I was 70 stories tall. In fairness,
that's true.
Also, if you were able to breathe blue fire, that would absolutely do the trick.
Well, yeah. I mean, who's to say that I can't? You've just never seen me do it.
That's true, and fortunately, I am not next to you in the conference room to find out.
Well, Nate, you delivered on the big finish I asked for, so that's all that really matters here. We didn't end with a whimper, we ended with a growl. So,
Or
all
a
right, guys.
high-pitched screech, at
A
least.
high-pitched screech, let's call it that. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about? No, no, no. We're good. All right. Well, we're done. So, if you're looking for more investing analysis into the companies that are behind the geeky stuff you love, you can check us out online at Fool.com. Until next time, for Tim and Nathan, I'm Allison Southwick. Fool on.